Attention everybody, due to so many people showing up, we're going to go ahead and change venues up to the large courtroom upstairs. I'm going to go ahead and open the doors up for you so that you can take the stairs instead of all of us trying to get on the elevator at the same time, okay? All right.
That's what I get for starting the stream a little early. I'm going to shut her down and we're going to schlep upstairs, and in about 10 minutes we'll be live again. Thank you.
I'm going to reconvene the May 11th meeting of the Macon County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to welcome all of you in attendance. It's been quite some time that we've had this many faces in here, and it's good to see everybody and showing an interest in what's happening in Macon County. Mr. Manager, just to confirm, we've got someone posted downstairs or a sign up.
Yes, sir.
We've got plenty of people.
Yes, sir.
Saying where we are.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any announcements? All right, we'll all rise. We'll observe a moment of silence. I'm going to ask Commissioner Bill to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do not have a, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, we do not have a public hearing tonight, so we're going to move right into public comment. We do have an abnormal amount of individuals signed up to speak tonight, which is great. Again, we like hearing from everybody and hearing about concerns and both the good and the bad of what's happening in Macon County. I've often said that either lack of communication or miscommunication is the root of a lot of evil. So as long as we're communicating and knowing what's happening, then it allows us to help do a better job for all of you. I will ask, because of the amount of speakers that we have tonight, I'll politely try and shut you down with about 5 minutes of speaking time, just to give everybody here enough ample opportunity to speak. I'll also ask, there's a lot of people, looks like, signed up for arts this afternoon, which is fantastic. I would ask if you're all going to say the exact same thing, to please help spare us that. If you've got new things that you could add, new points to the conversation, we love hearing it. So I hope y'all can understand and appreciate that. So with that being said, we'll move up right along to Mr. Peter Stern. Welcome.
Thank you.
You can come right around through the gate here and presume that it's right.
I almost want to say, may it please the court. Good evening and thank you. The reason I'm here this evening is that I have concerns with respect to voting integrity and all of the news pro and con with regards to voter ID. And my concern is that for me, one ineligible voter, whether it's an illegal alien, whether it's somebody from out of town, or somebody double voting, can nullify my vote, which is a problem. And it is beyond question that unless there is active, conscientious voter ID and signature verification, there's no way to audit the vote and tell whether or not these things are occurring. It's been problematic for a long while. Since in 2018, the voters in North Carolina by 55.49% majority voted to amend the Constitution to require voter ID, then we would like to ask, I'm speaking for my wife and myself, that the Commission entertain a resolution to formally adopt that amendment as active and in full force and effect in Macon County, irregardless of what's happening in the rest of the state, so as to protect everybody's franchise and vote and make sure that we are not getting illegal diluting votes to change things I did not bring a printed resolution with me because I was going to ask, are you willing to accept submission of one from me at the next meeting?
Sure. Well, I mean, we'll take it into consideration. You're welcome to bring us one.
That's all I need to ask. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete. All right. Tawana Valentine. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Tawana Valentine. I have worked in several different facets in Macon County. I have been a substitute teacher, short-term, long-term. I have also been a volunteer coach. I've sat on boards for Macon County youth football. I am also a guardian ad litem for this district. Currently, I am now doing private mental health therapy for children and adolescents here in Macon County. This is my home, has been since 2005. And I also have students who have had the pleasure of going through the Macon County school system. I have one that's graduating here this year. I've had 2 to graduate previously, and I've got 2 more coming down the pipe. So I'm here for a while. My perspective about arts and school and education. The brain is an organ just like every other organ that we have. My perspective is from the mental health perspective. In the 2018 community assessment here in Macon County, it was identified that mental health was a concern and was listed as the 4th priority. Art can be used to utilize and be that proactive venue for assisting our children, because eventually they're going to be the citizens of this county. When we focus on middle school and say Union, that is a very crucial point in adolescents' lives, because they are seeking to find alternate ways to stimulate their mood. The one thing that I would like for you all to consider is that this can be done through art and music and theater and painting, but it can also be done through drugs and sex. We need to choose the very option that's going to be more supportive of our students, and knowing that they're coming back, or they're going to go to college and come back, they're going to be leading this community. The next element I would like to present to you is that stress in the body increases cortisol. Okay, that is a hormone that is produced when any of us are stressed. The arts, it has been found by research, reduces the cortisol that we produce. Another piece and a key element to that is when the cortisol is reduced, our students can be more focused on those core classes. Once again, that provides and offers balance to our bodies. We are holistic. We have to see this from a holistic perspective. We want to educate our kids, absolutely. We want to give them the best education. But we also want to support their mental health. You can't make one the priority over the other. Having a natural outlet, such as the arts, in a school setting, offers a safe environment. And this is it allows for the brain to activate areas that wouldn't be activated if they were doing math or science. What we call as cognitive complex challenges. We want more arts because in addition to balancing the cortisol for the academic pieces. From just a societal perspective, it teaches children empathy, compassion, productivity, organization that will walk with them throughout high school, and it will also be with them as they become citizens, productive here in Macon County. Finally, there is a mindfulness that comes with arts. There are, one, it activates the brain, those different areas in the brain, but it also relaxes those areas that are taxed by logical and linear thinking. In a nutshell, arts increases academic performance and development of innovative thinking. And I beg of you and I ask of you to please not let Macon County be marginalized without having these arts and allowing our kids to have these opportunities so that they can be developed into well-balanced individuals. Thank you for your time.
Good points. Thank you. All right, Megan Jennings.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's great to see you again, Chairman Tate. Each one of you, thank you so much for entertaining our comments tonight. I've met with you over the course of the last 2 years, pre-pandemic, and since, and we've talked and had conversations about art education, music and art specifically in our public schools. I grew up as an only child. My husband says that explains a lot. But from a perspective of not really knowing a whole lot about the world, and that was my outlet. When I was in middle school, we did not have chorus for a year, and it drove me batty. Unfortunately, a couple years after that, we had a great choral program. I went on through the choral system. It became my home. It became my refuge, and all of my friends, for the most part, stemmed out of that group. It was through the choral program in my high school that I was able to travel to some really neat places and see some really amazing things. And through that time, we were able to achieve together. So it taught me teamwork, which I would not have been exposed to without that strong choral program. When I moved here after getting married, and of course we have 2 beautiful children coming up through the Macon County school system, it dawned on me that they did not have the opportunities that I did. We still currently do not have a choral or art program at the middle school. And you know that. Here we are again after the pandemic. We hope on the tail end of that. And the school board is submitting to you, or has submitted, a budget proposal that includes additional positions that have not been previously funded, some of which are these art positions that we have requested for some time. We believe that Macon County can be top of the line on many respects, but not without the creativity and resourcefulness, confidence, the peace and the joy that these programs provide our children. We believe that they are essential to Macon County being top of the line. Essential to our children. So tonight, I just want to ask each one of you, as you start to engage in the budget workshop process, perhaps you've already started, but you are you're about over the next few weeks to really entertain those numbers. And I know we've got some things on the agenda that you're also considering. I just want to encourage you to really ask our county manager and really ask for yourself to try to find what you can do to help us return these programs at the middle school that were lost to attrition, the choral program, the art program, and to add a music and art position to elementary level so that the students could actually spend time creating and investing themselves in their creation, that mental health piece, the brain research, how music just absolutely contributes to the preschooler and up to around age 9. That's the window of they say music aptitude, but it's because it's linked to language development in the brain. And after age 9, we don't see the gains that we could see with music and especially music. But we ask you to really consider just increasing the school system budget, so that and I know that you have said in the past that you're not going to dictate what the school board spends the money on, and we're not asking you to. We're just simply asking you to fund a decent amount to where they can provide for our students and help them develop the creativity, the confidence, the peace, the joy that these kids and our families in Macon County so desperately need. Thank you, gentlemen.
Ms. Jennings, have you talked to Senator Corbin and Representative Gillespie, who cut this out of the state budget many years ago? I don't know if these boys were there, but
we've had this.
The state cut it out of the budget. I would definitely call them boys about every 10 minutes.
Thank you.
And be asking them. It's in the governor's budget this year.
Yes, sir. But when you consider the fact that Macon County has 2 of the 3 K-12 public schools, it becomes an allotment issue, and so.
Allotment issue. They cut it out of the budget. Call your Senator Corbin and say, Senator, how about putting the money back into the arts?
Thank you, Mr. Bill. My request still stands, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Megan.
Sarah O'Neill.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Most of you know me, but my name is Sarah O'Neill, and I've been a public educator for 22 years. 17 of those years have been teaching art education. I've been blessed to see firsthand the positive impact art has on students. Students come to my classroom excited to create, to problem solve, and to get lost in their artwork. For many students, art is the reason they come to school. It is a place of joy and expression for them. They can decompress from the challenges at school and home. I have many students this year who are very sad about not being able to have art or chorus at Macon Middle School next year. They love having these classes as part of their curriculum. Here are a few stats to consider. It has been 5 years with no chorus at Macon Middle School. That is 925 instructional days and 6,475 instructional hours without chorus. It has been 11 years with no art at Macon Middle School. That is 2,035 instructional days and 14,245 instructional hours without art. Students in arts programs are 44% less likely to use drugs than their non-arts peers. Students in the arts outperformed their non-arts peers on the SAT by 91 points. Our students matter. The arts matter. Here are some quotes from my students. Art is my life. I'm not sure where I would be without it. Art brightens my soul and helps me release my stress. It is during the dark times that I can always turn to art. It helps my mental health. We need art and music. Period. I will leave you with a story. I had a student the first trimester this year who loved art. It was his happy place. He struggles in school, but when he came to art, he just lit up. You could just see it in his face. And he Came to my room recently to work on a special project, and he sat down and he took a big breath and he said, I've missed this place. And so for him, art is a safe place, and it's a safe place for him to express himself and to feel successful in school. Many students like him are kids that need the arts. So please consider funding these positions. Our students deserve to have what all the surrounding counties have. The arts are a necessity, not a luxury. Thank you for your time.
Carol Lynn Johnson.
Hi, good evening. I'm Carolyn Johnson, and I am a member of the Macon County Arts Association. I wanted to take a few minutes to tell you why arts education, which includes the visual arts, theater arts, and music, is critical to our youth, and how arts involvement in school-age children impacts their academic career as well as the rest of their lives. In general, art education is associated with gains in math, reading, cognitive ability, critical thinking skills, and verbal skills in school-age children. Arts learning has been shown to improve motivation, concentration, confidence, and teamwork. Specifically, students with high involvement in the arts are 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement. They're more than twice as likely to graduate college. They're 4 times more likely to participate in a science fair. They're 3 times more likely to win an award for school attendance. They're 3 times more likely to be elected to class office. In general, they earn higher grade point averages, and as Sarah said, they average 91 points higher on the SAT. They also have a 4% dropout rate versus 22% for those who have either low or no art involvement. But the benefits of the art education doesn't stop there. Let's look at how the arts impacts their emotional and mental health. Studies have shown that music education improves coordination, pattern recognition, and auditory skills. And it's also important in the development of self-confidence, a sense of achievement, imagination, and engagement with others. And theater, while it's not for every student, when it is a fit, it enhances communication skills and empathy. And it also improves vocal skills, reading comprehension, and in general, it helps our kids understand and relate to each other. Drawing and painting have been found to improve memory. I think I need to do more of that. Coordination, problem solving, and it also provides an emotional outlet and stress release. Making art with your hands helps students to better understand their own mental health without getting overwhelmed by feelings of vulnerability that often accompany inner struggle. And how does high involvement in the arts affect kids after high school? Well, 44% of kids who were highly involved in the arts attained an associate's degree versus 27% who were either low involved or not involved at all in the arts. 37% attained a bachelor's degree versus 17%. And 37% became volunteers in their adult life versus 20%. And here's something I find really interesting, and I think business leaders here in Macon County would find interesting. 72% of surveyed business leaders say creativity, a characteristic developed and fostered through arts education, is the #1 skill they seek when hiring. And 85% of those leaders said they have not been able to find the creative applicants they're seeking. I can't imagine growing up in an increasingly complex, confusing, and technologically isolating world without art and music. We need to create and fund ongoing and robust art education programs in our public schools so that our children and our grandchildren have the best chance to excel and succeed in school and in life. And so I would ask you to consider the Macon County school budget and whatever is in your power to do to approve the requested additional positions in art, music, and mental health. Thank you.
Frank Smith.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Frank Smith. I know a couple of you here, but this year I'm the president of Macon County Art Association, and I take that serious. I love what these other talented women just says. Can you begin to match their statistics on that? But I know it's real. I've seen it in my life. I've been involved in arts and music for 50 years. Was a businessman, but that training in that was very important to me. But now in retirement, I get to work in both sides of it. But art is so important for all the reasons they said. I won't mimic what they said. They've done a wonderful job expressing that. As a businessman, I've seen remarkable things. I think, I'm just quoting General Harris, it was almost $400 million 3 years ago was raised by people in the arts and craft business in Western North Carolina. That's significant. But for us to fund this for the children in preparatory for their other skills that they're going to need in life, it does lend itself to creativity, problem solving, and in music, cooperation. I know being involved in music as we are, that when you have bands, that cooperation, that's usually like trying to herd cats. But if they have this training, they're already going down that road. But I think it's real important that that we fund this properly, best we can, and we and everybody else will do everything we can to help and make that happen. I have a brother who's deaf and mentally handicapped that loves art. It's his whole life. He can't hear, but he can do art, and he does art every day. And so for the mental health side of things, I think that's very important to make that connection, particularly after this last year with things going on, and a lot of children are suffering from mental health issues, lots of them. And so I think this is something that we need to address, and I appreciate your help and cooperation on this. Thank you.
Norrell?
Golly day, it must be so exciting for you. Look at you sitting there. All these people have come to see you dispense wisdom and do things for the good of Maconians. And I'm here to praise you because this week's paper had this fabulous article about Edmund Grant and Robbie Holland's staff finding that child that was lost. What a great story. I wish I could have written something like that. And then, as Derek pointed out earlier, you've done this magnificent achievement of finally connecting the northern with the central greenway. You've got this beautiful path that you go around underneath the bridges and wind up on a very architectural pleasing stone embankment, and then you get to the bridge and you come to the end of the bridge. Oh my God, it's Highlands Road and Main Street. I can't go on that, and I can't go on the parking lot. It's all filled with gravel. Please, for God's sakes, commissioners, pave the connector between the end of the bridge and the greenway so we can stay safe, or take those formidable chain barriers and instead of putting them right across the path, turn them so that the path that's near the river and is dangerous, no, you can't go there. Stay on the other side of the chain. If you have half of the path where you're safe, you can still go around the circle, which is very important. So you have three alternatives. Either put the connector between the bridge and the greenway in, or reorient those chains, or get the equipment out there, dredge and fill and repair the undercutting of the greenway. Please take one of these courses by the end of May.
All right, John DeVille.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it's been a while. Speak just for a couple of minutes here about arts in Macon County Schools and this collective request for additional funds. I can't add too much to the statistics and the eloquence. Most of the statistics have focused on the importance of the arts in normal times. Everybody in this room knows that we have not had a normal year. And so I think the importance of the arts for especially these middle schoolers who have been deprived the past 5 years, I think it's more important now than ever. So that's the first point. There was a poll that Dr. Baldwin could speak to it better than I can, of students and parents, I believe, in terms of what students and parents wanted the pandemic relief dollars to be spent on. And at the top of the list was the arts. So I'll circle that. I'll leave you with a metaphor as you think about it. We are talking a lot in the country, at the state, local level about infrastructure, new projects, infrastructure restoration. As you consider the budget plan, as Mr. Rowland considers the budget plan for the next fiscal year, to visualize the souls of the children of Macon County schools and the ravages that have besought them in the past year, and consider the arts, drawing, painting, sculpture, music, as a balm that can restore those precious and in many cases damaged for the moment souls. I highly recommend to you that you watch Ken Burns' History of Country Music. Everybody should watch it. And you see the restorative power of music. And you see the restorative power of music to our people. Commissioner Beal has been, as far as I can tell, the leading champion of mental health in Macon County in the past decade. And I would just challenge you to see this as a mental health challenge and to pick up this mantle, this banner, and go forth. We can bet a chip on Senator Corbin. We can bet a chip on Representative Gillespie. But I think that we are putting most of our chip stack on Commissioner Beal and the rest of you all to take this across the finish line. Thank you all very much.
Olga Lampton.
Hello, I'm Olga Lampkin. I don't really have anything prepared. I'm actually stepping up here to voice my support for three different things. Obviously, the arts for Macon County Schools, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. I am here in pre-support of somebody else who's going to speak later this evening, and that is with regard to updating the animal control ordinances, specifically the ability to make anonymous reports. We have an issue on my street where there's a couple dogs that are in the street all the time, and we know who they belong to, but nobody really wants to get involved with calling it in, because we also know the group of people that live there, and people have had run-ins with them on the street before. Then the last part would be, my son spoke at town council about a skate park. He can't be here tonight because he's in rehearsals at the Performing Arts Center, but he will be coming in when his schedule allows him, to see if maybe the town and the county can do some kind of collaboration for that. As to arts, I went to a magnet school for middle school and high school. It was a performing visual arts and dance, so it was theater, dance, drama, and music for both middle school and high school. However, for 30 plus years, I've been working as a paralegal for attorneys. And what does that have to do with anything? Not much, except as some of the previous speakers have said, you get in touch with your creative side, and I think I'm able to come up with solutions that other people might not have considered, because I'm always thinking, in terms of colors and pictures instead of maybe just words. Now more than ever, like John said, our kids need this. My son paints at home, he draws between his virtual schooling, but I have the resources to provide him with paint. And when he says, oh, I need this other color, I can get it for him. Not all of our children have those resources. I know y'all have heard this, and I know you've heard the statistics, but it really is important, and it really does develop our children into these well-rounded individuals who can be creative and be in touch with their emotions. That's it. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Diana Brelsford.
Hello, everybody. I'm fairly new to Macon County. I grew up just outside of Buffalo, New York, in Amherst, New York, which is very, very lucky for music and the arts in our schools. I grew up in band and choir and doing operettas and accompanying different groups there in the school, and as a senior auditioned for Fredonia to be a performance major on French horn, and ended up in the Marine Corps Band. And I want to say that denying the children in Macon County the opportunity to be part of band, chorus, and art, you're taking away from the world our future Marine musicians, our future Philharmonic players, our future graphic designers and artists and string players. I'm currently working at Highland School, which does not have a music teacher, and I'm ready to jump in any second for that. But my point is, we're really doing an injustice to those children. There's a little girl in our class that's probably borderline on a spectrum, and she blossoms in the art class, and it's wonderful to see. And after raising 5 boys of my own and having one that's autistic, music just spoke to him and art spoke to him, and he just lit up. So I've been asked to read, I wanted to say one other thing. I just came from the Macon County Strings rehearsal, and there was an older member of that group that said, if they'd had music in my middle school and high school, I'd be proficient by now. So I thought that was a good point. This letter was written by Janet Ashbury. It says, Dear Macon County Commissioners, I'm writing to bear witness of the benefits, blessing, and need for arts in our schools. I have 2 children who attended both Macon Middle and Franklin High School. Both were in the chorus program and then the B Naturals program. I want you to know how these programs facilitated the God-given gifts within them and gave them the courage to pursue the path of the arts. My son is Corey Ashbury, Christian singer, songwriter. He won 3 Dove Awards and was a Grammy nominee. The year his famous Reckless Love came out, he had the courage to pursue the path God had for him in worship music and followed his dream. God has blessed it. His humble beginnings were in Macon County, North Carolina. My daughter Hannah, who has temporarily taken a different path in the medical field, but still dreams of her passion to sing. She went to NC State with the Macon Middle School Choir and still remembers those days. I believe her season is yet to come. She is gifted with an amazing voice. I know these programs sewed into my children. I am sorry for those who are likewise gifted yet do not have access to these programs. I am a watercolor artist. It took me years to follow my dream. I had no such programs in my early years that would encourage the artistic gift within me. I hope and pray that through the arts programs in our schools, others will not waste years, but be encouraged to live out their passion in a career in the arts. Dreams do come true. Sincerely yours, Janet Ashbury. And just to reiterate what everyone else has said, it does very much help with teamwork and intelligence and math skills and creativity and coordination and imagination and everything else. If I hadn't had it in my life, and if I hadn't had it first and second period, I don't know that I would have. Somebody else said something about art being the only thing to get up for, but it was something that I look forward to every day, and I still do. And I'm excited to see more and more programs in Macon County, but our schools need music and the arts. It's very important. We are denying our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Chloe Talent.
Good evening, I'm Chloe Talent. If you don't know me, I'm actually graduating Saturday with my music education degree. So with all that being said, I would have never went to college if it wasn't for music. Specifically chorus. Obviously I'm getting emotional about this, but not to be too personal, my parents divorced in high school and I hated math. I really didn't like science, and English was okay in history, but the only thing I looked to was third period B Naturals in high school every single day. And my teacher was supportive, he knew what was going on. Sorry, I was like, I'm not gonna cry, I'm gonna be really, really strong, but I know there's so many other children like me, and you've heard all the statistics. It's so powerful for mental health. I actually did my student teaching in a middle school this year during COVID-19, and I did all of it virtually, and then all of it hybrid, and then all of it fully in person, and I saw the difference it made in every single one of those middle schoolers, especially the ones that were in those EC classes and that were ELL students. I saw that they felt they were at home in those classes, and they were middle school. And I know that I, in middle school, 8th grade, all I cared about was making B Naturals. Every single day I went home and I was like, Mom, B Naturals tryouts are in a couple weeks. So if it wasn't for that, I would probably not be in college, and I wouldn't be going to hopefully make other children super passionate about music. So I know you've heard all the things tonight, and I really appreciate your consideration, and thank you.
Thank you. Carol Conte.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Carol Conti. I've moved here, I think it's going to be 5 years now, but I've been coming to this area for a long time. I'm an art teacher, and I have been for over 40 years, and I've also been a professional artist for over 40 years. As an art teacher, I've taught K through college. I have a master's degree. I also teach adults. I've been teaching in magnet schools, STEM schools, public schools, private schools, so I can really say I have seen the whole gamut of what the arts can do in all levels of education. And I advocate for everything that everybody's been saying, but I also want to advocate for those students who might not have the talent. A lot of times I have seen children who don't feel like they have a purpose or a reason. And I can still remember a story of a particular student of mine, probably in my first or second year of teaching in the 70s, where he was always in trouble. He was always in detention. He wasn't thought of very highly by the other teachers. He had a really tough time coming to school. And he wasn't really talented. But I looked for that spark in someone. And how many of you know Jackson Pollock's artwork? Anybody? All right, and most people don't think of it as much except a bunch of splashes and splatters on a piece of canvas. But Eric related to Jackson Pollock because he didn't have to draw. He didn't have to be accurate. He didn't have to be correct. He could just splash and move paint around. I gave him a great big sheet of cardboard from a refrigerator box, and it was huge. And he just filled it with colors and splatters, and he was in heaven when he came into that classroom. And it gave him the opportunity, as somebody that didn't excel in anything, that he could express himself somewhere. And so mental health-wise, yeah, a lot of times we think of the arts for the people who are talented, but often it means a big, big thing in their lives for those who aren't and are having a hard time with school. And that's one of the reasons why. But I want to finish the story. I could go on and say he became a famous artist, but I don't know what happened. I moved to another school. But one day I took them to a museum. I used to do field trips. I was blessed enough to be close enough to go to actual large museums. And in that museum was a Jackson Pollock, a real Jackson Pollock. And I spotted it first, not Eric. And so I knew he was coming down the hallway. And I said, you got to come down here. Eric, come on, you got to go see this. He came around that corner, and I still remember to this day, and I'm saying, this is 40 years ago. The light on his face when he saw that painting and recognized who it was, and that he was creating artwork like Jackson Pollock, and that he had that opportunity to see a real one, was priceless. There is no price on what arts can do for you. And so I advocate to really consider advocating for the arts for Macon County Schools. Thank you.
Tracy Dogan, correct? Tracy?
Here's a picture of a horse that I brought up in February's ordinance, meeting about the animal control ordinances. And I figure, a visual of the situation is better. That's the best picture I had. What I want to say today is that there's a whole lot of loopholes in our animal control ordinances where owners are able to skirt past the law and animal control officers cannot do anything about the situation. I called on this horse a couple times, and they went out there and they said that there's nothing that they could do, that the owner was within the law. Okay, so there was a goat. In particular, I reported that there was a goat, the horse, and a dog being neglected and abused. And the goat would tether itself to a pole and knock over its water constantly. And anyway, the animal control officer went out and could do nothing. About a week later, the goat died. Also, the owner, I believe, could not afford the medications the horse required and finally offered to sell it to me. And that's the horse, the pictures of the horse I'm talking about. The horse had numerous scars too from barbed wire and an infection from it. There's research that states barbed wire is not a deterrent to keep animals in an enclosed area. This is just one of the ordinances I would like to address. And anyway, the dog still remains in a neglectful situation. He has a small igloo doghouse, too small to hold any warmth through the winter. Its enclosure is chain link with no roof or anything blocking the elements. This is the type of situation that more detailed ordinances would change. For example, in other counties, they specifically state the size that the enclosure must be according to the size of the dog. They also state that the dog must be brought inside a building with heat in the winter. In this case, my horse is lucky because the pen was visible from the street. Therefore, I could try and help these animals. When I call in animal control to report the situation with the goat, dog, and horse, the operator said that the owner would have my personal contact information and would know who I am in case I wanted to withdraw my report for fear of repercussions from the owner, who was a hostile person. I already had given the owner my contact information. I wasn't worried. Therefore, I'm here today to request permission or authorization to start a committee to make Macon County's animal control ordinances more effective. I spoke to Jack Morgan's office, and they put me in touch with Jamie Villard, the head of animal control here. I told him what I wanted to do, and he agreed that ordinances that were more detailed and specific would make enforcement better. And that way owners cannot skirt past the law. So I propose to address changing the wording of ordinances and shelters for animals here, have more enforcement and follow-up visits for probable animal abuse. The goat who died, the owner said, "Oh, I'm going to build him a shelter." And months went by. He never did. And there's no follow-up. There's no, what do you call it, accountability with animal owners who choose to neglect their animals. And also, I would also like that the reports not include the person's information, personal information, you know, and that they be anonymous to the owner of the pets that are being called on. So, and I, of course, would volunteer my time to do this. And what I basically would do is get the other counties' legal wording of more specific ordinances that we already have, and just adopt those. And I would also ask, like, there's groups out there, one's Brother Wolf, I heard, that would be happy to help, you know, change our ordinances so that animal control can do something, you know, for our pets and animals here. Because right now, they're suffering. So that's what I want to do. So what do all of you think as far as me starting a group?
Commissioner Young, this is something you might want to take to the planning board.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any problem taking our current regulations to the planning board. I don't know if Ms. Duke would be allowed to attend.
Sure.
And I currently don't know what the policy is, and we can kind of review it together and take some of your input along with the planning board's input, and maybe we can work together.
Okay.
That'd be a good start, anyways.
It would give the see if we could.
It's actually Thursday. It's late this week.
If we could change the wording, it would give the officers more power to actually do something when they go out there and see these situations.
Planning board meeting's 13th, 5 p.m.
The next what meeting?
Thursday of this week, the 13th.
Is what meeting?
The planning board meeting.
Macon County Planning Board.
Okay.
That's who we normally look to review our ordinances.
Oh.
Provide us a recommendation. It's a cross-section of people from across the county that make up the planning board. Commissioner Young is our liaison to that board.
Okay.
So what we're suggesting is that you take this to the planning board and let them review it with you, and then send us potential recommendations of change.
Okay, is that meeting here?
It's at our, where Mr. Morgan's office is.
Okay. What time is it?
5 p.m.
Okay. All right. I thank you.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Jack, will you give her directions on where she needs to go, please? Thank you.
I can find Jack Morgan's office. Is
He'll tell you where the meeting's held.
It's a little bit below there.
Okay. Thank you.
I thought they were holding them in there.
I don't know if y'all.
Is that what they're holding now?
Environmental bill.
It was a really quick picture, but his ribs, all the bones in his body.
Kyle Jennings.
Are showing. He was in great health.
Thank you, Jack. Don't hurt yourself.
You gotta be at work tomorrow, Kyle, don't get hurt.
Don't worry. You know where I'll be. All right, I know y'all have heard a lot about Arts for the MCS tonight, but my mama wrote a letter, so I'm going to read it. So, all right, so this is from my mom, Karen Raby. All right, Macon County Commissioners, it is with much thought and consideration that I address each of you concerning the need for more arts and music to be incorporated into the Macon County school system. I often reflect on my years as a student from 1st through 8th grade at Caliseja Elementary School and for 4 years at Franklin High School. Ronnie, Bill, and I were classmates for 12 years, and I've been reflecting on many classroom experiences during those years. Along with the, what's it?
I bet you have.
Along with the book learning, we experienced a healthy mix of other activities, including art and music. I was never athletic, was one of the last to be picked for a team on the playground. However, when I could pick up the crayons, paintbrush, scissors, and other art supplies, I felt comfortable with the freedom to create and express myself. I have wonderful memories of singing and performing, times when our class could share joy and connect in ways that only happen through music. Although I took private piano lessons, I found the most satisfaction when being part of a classroom singing and performing. I wasn't a gifted music student, but was allowed to join the high school chorus. Dorothy Deaton allowed us all to fit in, and she could make all levels of talent blend into beautiful music. She didn't pick the best and put them on stage, leaving the less talented on the sidelines. No matter our gifts or the lack thereof, we all experience the joy of music. The arts and music help to ground kids, allow an outlet from less than desirable circumstances, improve social skills, and build confidence. Not all kids can or desire to play sports. Not all can be honor roll students. How many children miss great opportunities because no one was there to help them develop or discover their artistic gifts? How many kids could have been steered in a positive direction and weren't, simply because they never had a chance to express themselves with the arts? It's been 60 years since I began my journey through the Macon County school system. Change is inevitable in methods of teaching and in the curriculum. One thing is for sure, the arts are timeless. What children learn and experience in the art room and music room will positively impact them throughout their lives. How many parents have those little art projects tucked away from their child's first creations? Who has memories of familiar songs they learned in school? Even before the pandemic, kids needed this opportunity. After an abnormal year of social distancing and lack of interaction, the arts will be a critical part of recovery for our children. If this program steers even one child away from drugs, emotional pain, or discipline issues, that alone is priceless. My belief is that all will be positively impacted. Some may discover their passion for life, while others may simply enjoy the comfort and stability gained in the arts environment. Please allow this gap to be filled now. Thank you very much for your consideration, Karen Raby. Thank you.
All right, Jennifer Barrett Tatum.
Hello, we've seen each other before. I too am part of the arts group. We know that children in Macon County, that's our best resource we have. We need to put every available dollar and then go back and dig again, work the numbers. Teachers aren't the only ones that can make $1 out of 15 cents. So I'm asking you to look at the budget and look at it again and invest in the children in K-12 public schools here in Macon County with the arts. Also, hopefully, as Olga Lampkin said earlier, work with town council on the skate park idea. We'd love for them to be somewhere safe, to keep citizens safe and the children safe. And thank you for agreeing to work with the animal ordinances. I spoke to that before in other meetings. There's just really not any kind of detail that allows officers to make much of any kind of call when they come out. We'd love for them to be able to follow through. And the biggest thing, today I called in something trying to talk about animals that were out in the road kind of attacking cars, and I live in a place where it is not always safe for me to give my information out, my name, my phone number, my address. I have been called, I have been hassled for reporting things before. It needs to be anonymous. We need to be safe. And whenever my concern is the animals are going to get hit or people are going to have an accident, for them to not say, well, I guess they are, because I refuse to give them my address. So thank you very much.
Sarah Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Johnson. I'll try to make this brief because there's not much else I can add. There's not, sorry, I'll try to do this clearer. There's not much more I can add that everyone else hasn't already said clearly about the arts. I'm here today to request that the desires be answered for art positions and for music positions at each elementary and each middle school, so that they can have art and chorus. During my time at Otto, Macon Middle, and Franklin High, the arts was the only subject that made me excited to come to school. When I was in Otto, Mrs. Bird, every time she'd wheel that little thing down the hallway, we were very excited. It was the best thing other than recess. In Macon Middle, I don't really have a clear memory of an art teacher because I'm not entirely sure that we had one. I think Mr. Hopper would sometimes do something, but I have vague memory of that. Mr. Franklin and Miss Lansford at Franklin High School were the best that helped me get through high school. I would have had a very hard time in high school if not for art. My son, who is not yet 5, already shows an interest in music. His future education, along with other kids at Macon County, would benefit greatly with a well-rounded curriculum. Thank you. Excuse me.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment period. Let me just state that we as a board are going to be initiating our budget discussions at the end of this month. I have not personally seen the school's budget request yet, but we'll be seeing the schools as well as many others. I'm personally, I think I'm in my 10th year of being a commissioner here, and I can honestly say that for the most part, every single year that we've come up with spare dollars, we've given to the school system. I bet if you look back 10 years ago to where we are now, it's a dramatic difference. Ms. Jennings also said that I don't think it's, I've mentioned to her before, it's not in the best interest of this board to dictate to another elected board, the school board, of what they do with their money. So if we have additional funds that we see and we decide to put it towards the school system this year, towards operational costs, so if we fund this, it's going to be year after year after year until hopefully the state steps in, which in reality should happen. But if we decide to do it and we give, let's just say, for example, we give the school an additional $150,000 or $200,000 in recurring revenue to handle this. It's not in this board's interest, I think, to dictate how the Board of Education spends that money. If they decide to put it towards arts, and if that's where they feel like the greatest need is, then so be it. If they decide to put it something else. But I can assure all of you, and I think every member up here would agree, that we hear you, we understand, and we'll take that into serious consideration as we move forward into our budget discussions. And if we feel like we can afford it, we're definitely going to pass the money back to the school board for operational costs. If anybody else would like to join in.
Just one comment, you hear a lot of people talk about the mental health and how arts and music and the different avenues of arts helps those. There's going to be a new study coming out from NAMI. It'll be coming out in July, showing where now in rehabilitation facilities, that has become number one in treatment. For a long time, it's just like we have now. If you send somebody to Holly Hills, Fry, or any other mental institution, they stay for 7 days, give them a pamphlet and say good luck. So if you really want to change, you can see where the arts have made a real difference in the mental health. And coming out of COVID, where a lot of these children have been in isolation, you're right, if we don't catch these kids, and not only those kids who are experiencing mental health issues and showing symptoms, but for those kids who are fragile and not experiencing those, it has shown without a doubt that arts can, and arts is a wide thing. It ain't just drawing a picture. It isn't just drawing a picture. Arts is a wide thing, and I think we need to look at it. The state should fund this program statewide. The superintendent agrees. We all agree. Why they cut it out 12 years ago, I still, with physical education, same thing. I get confused. But when it comes to arts and what it can do, it's a lot more than, and I've seen it firsthand. We're having art classes now for people in recovery. So I appreciate the folks that have recognized this, and of y'all that teach it every day and try to make a change. I mean, and with these kids just coming back out of the isolation of COVID, it's going to be real important as we go forward. So it's appreciated.
I think any other comments?
Dr. Bowman, let me know if I've got this correct now. We had STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. When I was with y'all the other day, we've included an A in there, STEAM. That stands for art, right? That's okay. I didn't tell you a story.
Anyone else? Maggie, I'm going to ask, just out of curiosity, are most of y'all leaving, or are you going to stay? Because if we're going to reduce our crowd, we're going to go downstairs because of technology benefits of being in that room. But it looks like most people are leaving. That's why I'm asking. Are y'all going to stay? Well, which is fine. I think we're down enough now. Mr. Manager, you make the call. Are we down enough to?
Yes, we are. I didn't.
Yeah, we're good. All right, can I get a motion to recess? So moved. We'll re-adjourn in 5 minutes in the Commissioner's boardroom. Got a motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Young. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. I'll call our meeting back to order. First item is additions to the agenda. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, we have a couple presentations on here. If we could move item C in the new business, if we could move that up to B and move everything else down to get our reappointment of our tax administrator, so she can, I know she had a prior commitment tonight. Also,
will she lower my taxes if I do that?
We'll see what we can do. I'm not making any comments.
Lower, raise them maybe.
Raise them.
And if we could, I'd pass out to each of you add under new business, item number 11G. It's just approval of a new lease agreement with NC Works for our annex portion of the courthouse.
Okay, that'll be out, 11F.
Okay, 11F. If we put the, okay, I got you. And then 13, under appointments, we could add 13B, appointment to the SEC Board of Trustees.
Lori, looks like we have budget amendments 272 and 273, which will go to consent agenda.
Yes, please, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, under new business, me and the attorney had a quick conversation, but we would ask that under the resolution regarding the memorandum of understanding relating to the settlement of the opioid litigation, we've been involved with that since the get-go, Mr. Chairman. So what I'm going to recommend, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, is we postpone that conversation until next month.
Okay.
We do have a memorandum of understanding, but there's some language that needs to be cleared up before I can recommend to this board. And I've talked to our attorney, and of course he can speak for himself. I think that needs a little bit more review by all of us. And we'll be going down tomorrow to have that conversation. Mr. Attorney, is that okay with you?
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, so we'll remove item 11E. Move it to June. Anything else? Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, if we could table those minutes until
That's right.
25th.
So we're going to remove item 12A from the consent agenda, the minutes.
Chairman, I'd like to add a little addition
Okay.
to the agenda, if you don't mind.
11G. Okay. Go ahead.
Just want to talk about a potential, looking into a potential grant writer at some point in time.
Okay. Let's discuss
for the county.
Okay. Why do those 11G? Anything else? Everybody good? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Commissioner Higdon, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you. All right, any reports, presentations, Mr. Manager?
No, sir.
All right, no old business. Moving on to new business. Item 11A, Duke Energy request to place transmission pole on county-owned parcel and discussion regarding power grid update. Lisa Leatherman, Duke Energy Nantahala District Manager. Welcome, Lisa. Good to see you.
Good to be seen. Good to be here tonight. Thank you. It's good to be out in public, and I appreciate the opportunity to present to you this evening. So I'm going to hand you out just some county documentation. I think I've got enough to go around. Duke is making service upgrades throughout all of our service area, but in Macon County we have 5 projects, and one is going to involve county property in Watauga Vista. And I would like to discuss that project with you tonight. So we are doing grid improvements, and I call them self-healing circuits. The technical word in Duke world is self-optimized grid, but self-healing circuits really kind of explains it better than what we're wanting to do. So just inside Watauga Vista, you have a piece of property. At the end of Watauga Vista, the 3-phase line ends, and then there's a 2-phase line that runs through Watauga Vista. It sort of goes up to their entry road up the gap of the mountain or the top of the mountain, and then it extends across the 4-lane and heads back down Jackson County, not all the way. But by installing this pole in the right-of-way, it would allow us to put additional equipment that we need to create the self-healing circuit. The other side of the self-healing circuit comes from Webster, and we will end up tying these lines together, and they will physically join. So along this line, and it comes out of East Franklin Substation. What's my best landmark for East Franklin Substation? We're
just above Method's Tower.
Yes, or Drake's. Then yeah, somewhere in there. I'm trying to. Who has the security system? I just lost his name. Smoky Mountain. Thank you. That's the best landmark. So there's a circuit that leaves there, travels up, catches Rabbit Creek, goes on, catches up Watauga Road, the Silver Road, And then from Webster in Jackson County, there's a circuit that comes up Savannah, catches a number of places, and then we'll tie those two together. And along the route, there are devices, electronic devices that communicate between themselves. And the devices are set basically about for every 400 customers along the line. And so in theory, what happens, and in practice what happens, is if you were to have a fault, let's say that we built this line today and it was connected there at Gold City. If you had a tree fall on the line, or if you had a car hit the line there, the system would talk to itself. All this electronic equipment would talk to itself, and it would isolate that section and restore the power to everyone else. So right now you have this sort of radial line that goes out there, and if you had a fault here, all these customers would be out of power. So these self-healing circuits don't guarantee that you'll never not have power, but it increases the reliability. And it also communicates with a control center in Charlotte that it knows the location of where the outage is, and so it helps with restoration times. The technician can be told it's between segment A and segment B, and it helps to narrow down. It increases restoration time and finding the problems along the line. So I wanted to bring this one to your attention in particular because there will be a pole set in line in the right-of-way on county property. But I also wanted to take the opportunity to talk about not only this self-healing circuit, but others that we have in development. And it may be easiest to tell you about the two self-healing circuits that we have working now. One goes from Depot Station, substation near the Franklin Press Office, to West Franklin near the Board of Education, and it covers all of town. And so it comes up Depot Street, up the hill, Town Hill, back around by Lazy Hiker, Old Murphy Road, and ends back there. And that's been, it's been good. We've not had a lot of outages, but what it does is it enhances critical infrastructure. We get this courthouse to help support the hospital and other infrastructure. The first one that was built in Macon County goes between West Franklin Substation, which is near the new Ingalls, and that's South Franklin Substation near the new Ingalls, West Franklin Substation out at the Board of Education, and it connects all of the industrial park and Patton Road and Parker J. Bet anything Mr. Young, maybe in his tenure, worked on that circuit and self-healing circuit at the time. So the other ones that are going on in Macon County, there are two in Highlands. Highlands Substation, which is near Mirror Lake and Highlands Road, 64. That would go back down Hicks Road, tie back in to Short Off Substation near the Coliseum Club. That's great because that also increases the reliability of the hospital there. The other one would be a Short Off Substation, which is, again, Coliseum Club, going back into Cashers along 64. Catches Norton Road, catches Wildcat Cliffs Country Club, Old Edwards Inn, that part of Norton, and on back into Cashers to the downtown part of Cashers, the west side of that. The other ones here is South Franklin and Otto. That will basically get all the Georgia Road. Again, South Franklin Substation near the New Ingalls. Otto Substation is at Shope Road off of 441. So all of that country, Skeeter, Riverside, Hickory Knoll, it just helps increase reliability there. And let's see, East Franklin, Depot Street, and Highlands Road, which in a nutshell gets all of the Highlands Road area, your old home stomping grounds we talked about earlier with Coliseum and LJ, that area, and all of that country basically from, the Dodge dealership on. So just wanted to make you aware of the grid improvements that Duke is making. The plan is that Duke would like to have about 75% of all of its customers on self-healing circuits in the next 5 to 6 years. And so this is just part of the grid improvement that we have going on, and specifically wanted to let you know what was going on in Macon County.
So you already have an easement through there, right, Lisa?
We were working on that. Through Watauga, yes, sir.
Through Watauga, you already have an easement?
Yes.
So why would you even need our permission to put a pole?
Just to let you know, because it is on county property, and
it's a metal pole, correct?
It'll be a wooden pole.
Wooden pole.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Manager, is there anything else on my property? We got this property back in 2017 on foreclosure. Chester and I went and looked at it at the time, and we both came to the conclusion that this is one of those pieces of property that its primary purpose is it holds the earth together. So there's nothing we can foresee that it's 0.8 of an acre, steep topography.
Here's where I'm going with this. If there's nothing on it, would Duke be interested in just purchasing that from the county for a very minimal fee?
I would have to ask that of the real estate department, but Commissioner Tate, my initial answer would probably not, but I will ask for you, and I'll return that information to
We picked
Manager
it up
Miller.
for about $1,500.
There you go. I know it wouldn't be much, but I'm just saying it.
Right.
Might take it off the county, and then the good thing for the county is it might get us just a minimal amount of revenue forward. Very minimal.
Exactly.
It would be.
I will ask that question and get the information up.
In lieu of that, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we authorize Duke Power to go ahead and set a pole to extend the line so we can be self-healing.
Thank you, Commissioner Bill.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Bill,
I was just going to second the motion.
second by Commissioner Young. Discussion. Paul, you had a question?
No, it goes under the line, the existing line.
Yes.
You're just putting in-line pole.
That is it. Yeah, to help with setting equipment along this route.
Self-healing. Hey, let's go.
So
Gotta love
just
self-healing.
while we're in discussion, if you don't decide to purchase it, I presume we'll need some type of lease agreement, $1 a year, or whatever it might be.
No, there's already a right of way.
Yeah, there's already an existing.
They already have
right-of-way.
an easement.
They gave us that $1 25 years ago.
Right, yes. So, well, very good. Well, thank you. Any other questions, any
Got a vote?
more
No,
information?
we got a vote.
Oh, I'm
That's it.
sorry.
All in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Right.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Lisa.
Thank you. Appreciate the time, and thanks for letting me give you an update on grid improvements.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right, can I
Thank
get
you.
a motion to reappoint Ms. Abby Braswell as Macon County Tax Administrator? She wrote a very nice letter to us. Well deserved.
Thank you.
I will say while Abby's done a fantastic job since taking over the position as tax administrator. We've transferred under her supervision. We've totally switched our tax system that we had in place for 45 years. That conversion process is going great. Abby's done a fine job and couldn't be more proud of the board's decision to appoint her as tax administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Glad
Motion
to.
by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank
Thank
you
Abby.
very much.
Sorry it took so long.
Thank you, Abby.
No problem.
Thank you, Abby.
Macon County Board of Education resolution regarding Franklin High School. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Chris Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The facility deficiencies at Franklin High School have been well documented. As principal there over a decade ago, I was resubmitting capital outlay requests that Mr. Shields had submitted when he was principal. Many of those issues and needs still exist today. Our two boards have had discussions about the possibilities of moving Franklin High School to another location in the Franklin area, but we've never been able to agree on a suitable site. So with this resolution, our board would like to, for us to, as the two boards, to reconsider the possibilities of a new facility for Franklin High School at its current location. The liaisons have had some conversations with Novus Architects of Asheville. We're encouraged by the information that they've provided regarding the feasibility of a new facility at the current site. We're encouraged by the possibilities of minimal displacement to students, minimal disruption to instruction, and minimal security issues. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Novus.
Do you have any bad news besides the cost?
That's it.
Welcome. Appreciate y'all's patience as we.
A quick second to get this. That'll pop up here.
Well, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity on behalf of the school board to talk a little bit about the process that we've undertaken for the Franklin High School. We've been studying and working with some folks to kind of vet various options and come up with a proposal that we think is worth y'all's consideration with regards to replacing the facility at Franklin High School. I'm Emily Kite with Novus Architects. We've done several other projects here with the county in the past, and so we certainly appreciated the opportunity to continue to collaborate with the school board and with various members of your group as well. I'd like to talk a little bit today. First, I should probably turn that on. I want to go a little bit through some due diligence that we've done and give you all some background around some of the other sites that we've considered and other options on the existing campus site to come to the conclusion that we've drawn with regards to the concept that we'd like to present today. That concept will include a discussion around schedule. It will also include a discussion around the budget and talk about some next steps for this board to consider with regards to continuing the momentum of this project if you choose. We've looked at various new sites. Y'all have been a part of that conversation throughout the last several years. There's various considerations with those sites with regards to topography, traffic, and access to the site. Utility availability, stormwater management, environmental concerns around stream mitigation, archaeological surveys, and of course land acquisition costs. And those are all factors that we considered with various other new sites that have been available on the market over the years that are big enough to support the high school activities. And with most of those sites came a lot of additional cost and a lot of additional challenges that didn't translate into better value in a building or more building or better quality building in terms of high school facility. And so we've pretty quickly ruled out most of those options. On the existing campus, we looked at various options that had varying degrees of topography challenges, operational interruptions and disruptions to normal school functions during construction. Safety considerations were also one of those things that we looked at with regards to the various options that we considered. And phasing. All of those translate into longer construction schedules, risk to safety, and risk to operations of the existing campus. And throughout ruling out various other iterations of this, we've come up with an option that we think will address all of those concerns and provide the school system and you folks with an opportunity to rather painlessly build a new facility on the existing campus without disruption to operations and risk to safety, and with a shorter duration of construction schedule. So I'm going to go through a little bit of that. I'd like to briefly pause at the schedule. This is a little bit of an overview schedule. It runs along a timeline starting with basically right now. I've highlighted on there when football season happens, because in the initial phase of this project, we would address the existing football stadium as part of the first phase of this project to address not only the track that needs to be repaired and replaced, but also some drainage issues in the area of the existing football field. So we'll come back to schedule and talk about it in a little bit more detail, but I want you to sort of look at this within that context to start with. So if we start with the existing site, I'll walk through the phases really quickly. First phase, of course, would be the new football stadium. We work with the grade and the dirt from the existing practice field that's at the very top of the site towards the back, and are able to do the football stadium as the first step. And that also helps us to prepare the site for a new building, which would be positioned at the back of the site where that current practice field is right now. So that would be the second major phase of the project, would be to build the building in back of the existing facility. In the last phase would be all the parking and the demolition of the existing building and the remaining ball fields. You can see a little bit on this site, the star sort of points you to the front door of the building around that sort of drop-off loop for car traffic. That would be kind of where the front door of the new building would be. And along that blue line that's on the screen is really the demarcation between where the existing school campus remains operational during construction, and construction happens really behind that. If you can imagine literally a fence between those two things, that those two things could happen simultaneously with each other without substantial overlap and impact to the normal operations with the school. If we zoom in around the building to do a quick overview of some of the amenities that we're proposing, certainly there's an awful lot more work to do around the design of the building. We need to talk to folks at the high school. But in our experience in working with schools, we have factored in most of those amenities that you would see in a traditional high school setting. We understand how many students are in attendance at the school and those needs of a traditional high school setting. Starts with really a 3-story academic wing. This allows us to work with the existing topography to minimize the amount of dirt that we need to move around and the need for steep retaining walls on what's not, to start with, a particularly flat site. If we look in the back of the building, there is opportunity for arts education in an auditorium that could seat about 1,000 to 1,200 students. There's the cafeteria and kitchen with direct sort of back delivery access for food trucks and other things, and dumpsters and those sorts of things as well. And the administration area would be located right by the front door, which I know safety and security has been a big priority for the school on the existing campus, and having admin located right at the front door is important. Of course, there's athletics in this particular concept. You have the added benefit of having a field house for your outdoor athletics that's connected up to your high school that can share locker rooms and other support areas between not only the football stadium but also those indoor sports, basketball and other things as well. So that's a little bit of a high-level view of how the building would be organized, but like I said, there's work to be done to really get to know the school folks and to understand exactly what those amenities need to be inside of those bigger kind of programmatic chunks.
One of the things that jumped out at us initially is how much lower the football field is than the main body of the high school. It's about 30 feet difference. So there's a big opportunity there. The practice field is a large area and has a lot of dirt in it. And we've determined that we could take dirt from the practice field, bring it to the football field, and bring that difference in elevation down to about 15 to 20 feet quite easily. So that's about the depth of a story in a building, in a big building. We anticipated having the football field, the field house for just the football team, at grade on the football elevation, football field elevation. They would enter in at the 50-yard line through the stadium. The athletics for for things like basketball and track and those things, their locker rooms could be upstairs directly above, and maybe even some sort of house for or room for like Bryson City's got, where they bring in their alumni, and you enter in from the stadium, from the school, and that alumni room from the top. So essentially, you never leave as a student. You wouldn't be leaving, even under athletic conditions, the building per se. You're going to be inside of a building all the time, except if you're on the football field practicing. And it's a great safety issue. I can tell you, as architect here since 2007 on 2 schools and pretty much every other school that you have, that I have worried about the high school the most, because it is just a wide open campus. And they've, since a few years ago, the school board has taken a lot of steps to put in security measures and everything else. But it's an old campus with a lot of issues. We want you to be in a new, contemporary building with none of those issues, with room to grow built in, with kids that don't have to put on a coat to change classes and go outside, with the latest and greatest in technology, air conditioning and heating systems, finishes that don't wear out and require constant maintenance. Things like that. That would be our goal on this. We think we've come up with a proof of concept that really works, that takes the school and separates it from the construction. These 2 men here are from Vanoy, and they love the idea because you could service the construction from the street that goes off to the right. I forget the name of it, but off to the right there, and they won't even be coming through. No construction trucks, vehicles, heavy equipment would be ever coming through the main campus. So it's really an unusual situation. Most of these types of things that I've done, Emily and I have done since 2001, when she came with me, have been renovations where we are building 20 feet away from a building or a group of buildings, and then over the summer we tear it down and we have a new school. But it is a gigantic problem to move kids through construction sites, and the fire marshal doesn't like it, Jack doesn't like it, I don't like it, nobody, principals don't like it. This plan allows you to, the kids are just going to watch it from over there. That's all they're going to do. They're not going through it, and they're not going to have to take part in it. And it's going to be a much shorter project, a much less expensive project, and a project that can start right now. And it's ready to go, I think, myself. Ready to go. It's got the basics there, and Emily's open for more questions.
To talk in a little bit more detail about the schedule, there is the opportunity, and certainly we've worked with Vanoy Construction to try to map this out at a high level view, not only the schedule but also the budget. And it allows for an opportunity to really get started right away. And using a construction delivery method where you have a construction manager allows you to do packages for bidding in sequence. It allows you to get started in working on the site design work and getting it to be construction ready at the end of this coming football season of 2021. So construction could start as early as November of 2021 with the site portion of that work that preps the building pad at the practice field, and it also gets us started on the new football stadium so that construction can happen in the window between your football seasons. Concurrent to that can be the much longer amount of time that it takes to design the building to be ready for construction, and so that site work can be happening in construction while we're continuing to design the building and work through that. There's opportunities for other packages for foundations and steel packages to get the building started in a more timely fashion as well, to condense the amount of time that we are on site for construction as well. And all of that is sort of to be determined. And I think two of the critical things to note about that schedule is it does require, obviously, for a design team to be assembled and for a construction manager to be selected pretty quickly in order to hit that window between this coming football season and next year.
Can I back up just a minute?
Yes.
I want to explain to these gentlemen kind of a little bit about what's going on and how we got here. So this is purely conceptual. Okay?
Yes.
They have volunteered their time. We have not exchanged any kind of money. They're here pretty much because we've worked together in the past, and myself and Mr. Shields, we had kind of sat down, we've explored a lot of different options. So I don't want you guys to feel like we're sitting here kind of saying, this time frame is kind of intimidating, especially with what's going on right now. So, we came to this point. That idea, what you saw was, again, conceptual. And before we move forward, there'll be a lot of new input and ideas and layout, and to make sure everything kind of fits. That's really not the design, and that's not, that may be tweaked a whole lot, and a lot of it's going to boil down to cost.
Mm-hmm. So which is the next slide. But I want to build off of what you said, Josh, is that there's an awful lot of engagement that a design team would need to have with the school board and the folks that work at that school to really understand in depth what the programmatic requirements are and what the needs are of the students and teachers that work there. And I would say that certainly we spend a great deal of our time, both Vanoy and us, designing schools and building schools all over the place, and it gives us an understanding of what we would expect to see in a school. And we work with the Department of Public Instruction requirements for North Carolina as well to build a framework that allows us to prove a concept. Exactly what you said, Josh, in terms of we know that something the size we think we would need for a school in Macon County that will fit on a site, and the logistics work. And so then the real work starts to fully understand what the school board and the school system is looking for with regards to the specific amenities of that particular for Franklin High School. I want to talk a little bit about the budget. Brian Walker is going to help me from Vanoy. They did a good bit of estimating around both of our sort of knowledge around schools. They're doing a lot of school construction in this area right now, so they've got some, real-time cost data with regards to budget. And so we've got a couple of things to go through with budget. And I'm going to let Brian sort of kick off at the top, starting with the construction data and the construction cost. And then we'll sort of layer on some other things for y'all to consider as well.
Thank you.
You want the clicker? The next button should be the construction cost of that.
Great. Chairman, Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Brian Walker. I'm Vice President with Vanoy Construction. We're a general contractor. Been in Western North Carolina since 1952 when we were started. First thing I would like to say being here is I do appreciate personal touch to your meeting upstairs and seeing that in the approachableness. Being in other meetings where it's not existent, that's pretty special. I just did want to mention that. So we were asked to come here to bring some context to this project, just so you had an idea from a conceptual standpoint what type of rough order magnitude. So our expertise, K through 12 work, is a big part of our portfolio. We've built over 3 million square feet of K through 12 work over the past few years. And so through that, we've gained a lot of data. So through this and working with the design team and looking at the numbers, we looked through the square footage, we looked through the fields, we looked through the site work, we gave consideration to the water issues that are out there. And again, I preface this is a very conceptual budget, but based on the amount of data we have from schools, we're anticipating somewhere in the range for a construction cost of $60 to $70 million, including all the physical
Say
aspects
that one
of
more
it.
time. 60 to 70 million.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Construction costs, right?
Construction cost only. So we're going to go through, additionally, on top of that, you would have design fees in the range of $3.5 to $4.5 million. A lot of that goes in relation to the percentage of the construction cost itself. Another piece in there that we would recommend that Emily touched on briefly with the construction manager at risk delivery system is a pre-construction fee in there that we highly recommend. It pays for itself tenfold over, if not more, of getting involved early in the process and providing the contractor aspect point of view as you're going through the phasing, the construction, looking at the drawings and providing input with the design team. And then finally, you've got your owner cost, your soft costs there from a perspective of FF&E, your furniture, fixtures, your IT, as well as all the testing that goes along with it, things of that nature along those lines, as well as an owner contingency for things that may come up through the process. So that just, again, was asked to give just a context.
I think that
the magnitude.
The total range for the entire thing, which would include the design costs and the owner costs, is in that $75 to $88 million range. That's presuming a building square footage of about 150 to 170,000 square feet, which is pretty typical for a school that serves this number of students. And so I think that some of the next steps for y'all to consider, obviously, design team selection. I may let Dr. Baldwin speak a little bit in more detail about the resolution. Deliberating around construction delivery. We've talked about the construction manager at risk delivery method, which includes support from your contractor during pre-construction and design to do cost estimating along the way and to work out site logistics and phasing, things like that. And I know that's something that's come to you in previous projects for y'all's consideration. And certainly we've had quite a bit of experience with that. And Vanoy is an experienced construction manager as well if you have additional questions. Some of the more immediate things that should happen that would help with the due diligence about proving sort of a concept that we've developed is getting a site survey to understand where utilities are and to get more specific detail around topography, and also geotech testing up on that practice field and other areas where we plan to be building to confirm the soil conditions that the building would be sitting on. So that's the extent of our presentation, and we're certainly open to questions. Dr. Baldwin, if you've got more to add to that as well.
I think that pretty well covers it.
In the initial demo, would you demo everything up to the gym and the gym and the old ag building? All that would go to initial, right on up to
Just the ag building would be the only thing that's inside of the initial
so
construction.
the gym,
All of that would
the
remain.
initial demo, the gym would stay.
Yep.
But I think the concept looked good.
Yeah, it keeps everything, it eliminates the building phasing and the student moving and the modular classrooms that you would surely have to have. You would probably have to have at least 8 modular classrooms. You have to run sewer and water to them. You have to run electricity, communications, all that stuff, and then they just go away.
And Mike, when y'all looked at it, and Gary and Josh too, are we going to be able to use any of the old drive-in property that we purchased? It falls off from the practice field and goes down to a
The
swamp.
answer to your question is yes. As I originally thought, we were going to have a retaining wall there, but our very clever site planner has eliminated that retaining wall, and Miss Emily says all of the industrial arts type of things, they bring cars in, they have machine shops, etc., could be located at that lower basement level, a daylight basement, onto that back road, and eliminate the retaining wall because you're walking further down the hill. And any excess dirt could be, which I don't know if we'll have much, but if any, could be trucked down on site into the bottom. I know there's some streams down there, but we could work with that and dispose of dirt there on that site.
There's a reason they call it Frog Town.
Yeah, I know.
I think
it's a deep hole.
One of the more compelling things about this concept, in contrast to other things that we explored, was the ability for us to use the dirt that's available on site without having any sort of imbalance there between what we needed to cut and what we needed to fill in other areas. And many of the other concepts that we looked at, both on this campus that were more heavily phased, and also the new sites that we looked at over the course of the last several years, all had an imbalance in that situation that translated to pretty substantial amount of moving dirt and a pretty substantial amount of costs that would have impacted your budget.
Let me give you what substantial means. You're going to have to remove about 400,000 yards of dirt at $15 a yard, $20 a yard. That's money you never see. It just goes and drives off, and you pay it, but you don't see it in your building. You don't see it, and it didn't do a thing for you. 441 site that we looked at had just that. And that was after we used all the dirt we possibly could. They had 400,000 yards of dirt to haul off, and I don't know what you do with 400,000 yards of dirt. That's a lot of dirt. So we abandoned those kinds of sites. We had sites that had nice layouts, but were way out in the woods. You couldn't get there. You would have road improvements. So this is out of all the things we've done, and over the past 5 years, looked at things on behalf of the board, that this is the best concept that I think we've come up with.
Well, I think actually, we've always worked together well with the Board of Education, but it's really up to that board to select the site and the architect. And I think that's the way it goes, Chris. You all select it and we pay for it.
And I think it was exemplified in your resolution, right? That this is what you want I'm gonna call it the concept 2 that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's what your resolution moved towards. Correct, Dr. Baldwin?
Well, I believe the resolution just requested that the board consider the Franklin High School site. Moving forward, Barry, can you explain the process moving forward? There'd be an RFQ process. Is that correct?
Yeah, after should the boards come to an agreement and decide to move forward with this project, I think it would, it would first take a vote of the board to move forward with the project and be willing to gain the revenue necessary to
Called
fund the
raising
project.
taxes, wouldn't say it, that's what it's called.
To get the revenue necessary to fund the project. And then after that decision's made, I think then is when you move forward with the particulars of the project, such as selecting your, getting an RFQ process for the architect, going through that selection process of the design, and everything else. But that first step would be for that decision to be made to move forward with this project. And until that decision is made, I think, you know, the RFQ process and the design process, all that's null and void until that decision is made to move forward with the project and to gain the revenue necessary to fund the project.
So if you go with 88 million, a penny is about 800,000 dollars. So if you go with 88 million, you're looking at more or less a nickel,
6 or 7,
or a little bit more.
We'd have to get the financial advisors
Yeah,
to run
we'd
our
have to
current
see.
debt load and what's coming off and, you know, to kind of see.
But if you just stick with that, you're somewhere around 5, 6, 7 cents.
I think in the previous scenario we ran with the middle school renovation, I think we assumed and again, I'll have to double check this, it's been a while, but I believe we assumed a $70 million project cost for the high school. And I think that with our current debt load and everything at that time, if we move forward with the middle school renovation, we were looking at about a 6 cent tax
30 years
increase to fund the principal and interest related to the new high school coming on.
And that'd be on a 30-year deal with the high school.
Right. Well, and I think it was a 20.
Might have been 20.
But again, we'll have to double check all those numbers. But at that time, based on our current financial situation.
This went up, I can tell you that.
As a former principal of Franklin High School for 21 years, I'm invested, and I'd like to see this project move forward. It's going to cost some money. It's going to cost some taxpayers' money, and but it's an investment for the young people here in Macon County, in the Franklin area. I think it's definitely an improvement. Many of us know Dr. Baldwin's principal there, Josh was a student, Hall was a student. We all, Mr. Beal was, all these people here were students there. We know the infrastructure. We're sitting on a time bomb, and we're going to have to deal with this. It just happens at this time to fall in our lap. It's fallen in our laps prior to this, but we got it away from us. But I think it comes a time that this board will have to make a decision because it's a need. And I think the people of Macon County understand that need. They understand we want the best for our kids. And we talked about STEM tonight, we talked about STEAM tonight, which is art. And then you talk about science, technology, English, math. This is the time for us to go into the 21st century, the other part of it, with their education. These young people and what they're working with and doing with their technology, we need to catch up with them. And our schools are not up with them. I'm not up with them either. But it's time for us to look at this and get serious about it. It's easy to brush it off. But I say again, I'm invested in it. Whatever we need to do to go to the next level, I'm ready to make a motion, and let's keep the project going. If we don't, it'll die.
Mr. Shields, just to add to that, that's a substantial investment in the community and in the school system, what we discussed here tonight. But I'd also just add that some of those costs are unavoidable. We know that we're going to have to do something with the drainage around the student parking lot, football field. We know that we're going to have to do something with the Fine Arts building. We know that we're in a main building that's 1955 model. There are significant issues that are going to have to be addressed in one way or another. This may wind up being the most cost-effective way to address those issues.
Mr. Shields was principal when I first came on the board, and we got some QSAB, or QSCAB, I forget which one, money. And the first thing we did with that money was get the extension cords out of the floor in the main building. 6-foot bathrooms in the gym with that Q-scab money. You remember that well?
Oh, yeah.
I do.
So there's no doubt, and having served as liaison for 15 years to the schools, I'm like Mr. Shields. You know, we've talked about it, we've kicked it down the road, we're going to do this and going to do that, but it's time that we got a good plan, we've got good people working on the plan. You know, I think the community will, some of them, will they support raising taxes? No, sir. But that's what you're elected for, is to make these decisions like this. And so I look forward to the next step, whatever that might be, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Manager, may I say something? I can offer the board a safety net, so to speak. It's apparent that the field drainage and the natural turf and everything else that you've got there in that field is a hindrance, and you have a strong desire to get that fixed. Parking lot flooding, the drainage, all that. There's a natural line of demarcation, since we're not doing any kind of demolition on the existing school except for that small ag building. There's a natural line that goes between the football field and the building, as Emily had shown. You could not just do the football field and the parking lot, and if the world fell out from underneath you financially, then you could stop it at that. You haven't impacted the school at all, except you've given them a new football field, and you have to build a small ag building somehow. But
let me ask you a question about the drainage. Are we all in agreement you have to take that drainage to the river? Every time we've looked at it from, the only way you're going to fix that is to take it to the river. We all agree that starts out there behind what is now the old library,
right,
the senior services building. When it floods, that water comes through there. That pipe goes through the middle of the football field.
Right.
It was there when we put it in. Goes all the way through behind the Franklin press office, and then it backs up.
Right.
Everybody that's looked at that over the years, a lot of years, including the man that put the tile in that goes under the football field, the only way you can really fix that drainage problem is to take that to the river. And because anywhere you stop it, you're going to have that same problem. It's going to be backing up. That's the reason we have the sinkholes in the parking lot.
one of the things to combat that, Ronnie, is large underground storage tanks, so that you have, when you have that heavy rainfall, 2 or 3 inches in an hour sometimes, it has a place to go and then be discharged into the waterway system at a rate that the waterway system can absorb. So it may not have to go all the way to the river if you do something like that, where you put in basically large pipes, and it just, the water comes in and it's stockpiled in there for a while, and it slowly comes out. And that's one way of not having to turn it into a giant. We will. Thank you.
Seen it too many times, all of us that you're at.
Any comments, Paul, Josh?
Go ahead, Paul.
So what's the next step, Mr. Mayor?
Comments, Josh?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm excited to kind of see, what this will cost us, real numbers and a real concept, and I think is that the next step, just to see what.
Move it on. Move it on up.
Yeah, this has been
Let's see what we got.
when I ran for office about 10 years ago, when I started this, this was a point of contention. It was a point of discussion then. I was talking to my dad a few months ago about this and about upcoming county projects, and I mentioned to him that the county is probably getting ready to take on the largest project that it's ever had. And he said, well, what's that? And I said, the Franklin High School. And he goes, I don't know if they need one, do they? And I said, Dad? I said, I think that was still there when you were there. He goes, is that thing still there? So I get the same one. He goes, yeah, they need a new one. So I understand. And this is probably not going to be very political savvy of me, but it's honest. And so I'll say it. I represent District 1 in this county. District 1, the district I represent, is going to be about 50% of the tax base that's going to pay for this. And those students, the majority of them in my district, aren't going to go to the school, so they're going to be popular. But I'm ready to bite it off. I know it's needed. I know it's time to do it, and I'm ready to sell that in my district of why it is needed. So I am in favor of moving forward with this project. So it's time.
Just a couple of comments. Is we've 80 million, whatever it is. We got to do some serious talking about this. We just financed the capital improvement plan for Macon County, space needs analysis for Macon County. We didn't include the Board of Education, their needs into our capital improvement plan, right?
That was county needs only.
That was county needs only. And we've got a prioritized list of some that are considered pressing projects that county needs. Now, right now, I think we're at 30, our debt load right now is about $33 million. 96% of that is educational debt. So there's $33 million. We throw another 70, 80 million, that's over $100 million. And I think there's some other projects. We started talking about school improvements when Josh came on board, and we were talking about a long-term plan. What do we, we're just did Macon Middle School, kind of on the spur of the moment thing. Now all of a sudden, bam, we're at building an $85 million high school, and I hear there's things we need to do to our elementary schools in the tune of $2 or $3 million. Well, wait a minute, let's get a grasp on this. What is our overall concept here on education? We're going to be in a $100 million debt load for education. That completely eliminates any improvements to our capital improvement plan, in my assessment. I don't know. It's going to very well hinder it. So I think this concept, it was just mentioned one night in a closed session back here, let's build a new high school, and bam, we're on it now. We're ready to build a football season. Nah, not my vote. This thing has got to be careful. I want to know exactly what this is going to cost the taxpayers, because we got to sell this thing. This is not about 5 or 6 gentlemen here. This is about selling it to the Macon County residents. And with what's going on in Washington right now, we've heard talk tonight about some perilous times we're living in. We're certainly living in some, if this capital gains and our own corporations, corporate taxes, and the uncertainty from this clown show in Washington, D.C., we really need to be very careful. So it's going to take some discussion, or at least to get me on board. We got 4 votes here, that gets it done. But we've got to have some discussion about this. It's not we're coming in here tonight. I'm not jumping on the ship. Let's pull the hammer and start moving dirt tomorrow. That scares me to death. So it's going to take some. We may need to have some special. It's going to take some thought. What is our plan? Are we just going to completely revamp the whole educational capital improvement needs? This is big time. $80 million in uncertain times.
I agree with Mr. Higdon there, but I guess I'm going to complete my 8 years in 22. You can only talk about something so long. You either need to do it or get off the pot. And that's just what you need to do. And if that causes and I agree with him that the public has to be in support of this. But we've done this so many times, we've never put it in the public lap. But it seems like now when you talk to people in the public, they're wanting to know what's the matter with us. Why aren't we moving with this? So, as an invested person at Franklin High School, and the young people here, you're talking about total of Macon County got 4,500 students, and but I think it's time to put the spotlight on Franklin High School, and let's upgrade it. Hopefully, we'll never. If that happens, we upgrade Franklin High School. Many of us we'll never see another high school. Josh, you mind? Well, you're looking at 50 years before you have another one. But I think that it's time to do something. I think the time I've been here, I'm worn out with it. Of finding sites and going around and doing all this due diligence. Then we come up and we don't do anything. And I can respect what Mr. Higgins says. And I think it will take a lot of thought. But we got to, let's move it that way. If we don't, we'll quit. And we'll let it go to another group that comes on as your county commissioners. Because every 4 years you have votes.
But again, I think if you quit, I still hope you'll address the drainage issues around the football field, the fine arts building, the issues that are associated with the main building. All of those things, I mean, those things haven't just popped up out of thin air. We've had a discussion about those for a number of years now. If you quit, I hope you don't quit on all of those things.
No.
I don't.
I'm ready to, let's clean house, let's get it done. And that means I get to exit out. At least I stood up for what I believed in. And I think it's like Mr. Higgins there, he's standing up for what he believes in. I think we should move forward, put a new facility there, and let's get into the 21st century, the last part of it. We got another 80 years in this, so let's get some of these young people there. And when it comes down to these kids that are coming through now, these are high-tech kids. And you talk about mental health, you talk about all this type of thing. We need to provide this for these young people. And it's not time to go back. All the time I still enjoy you. But I definitely understand where Mr. Higgins is coming from. And we'll have to do some work, but we got to move forward. If we don't, we'll quit. Because it wears you out. This is the second or third time I've been on this. I was on the school board the first time as county commissioner, and here it is again, going back to the same properties we looked at the first time.
Well, we go back to the time when we was going to start at the front. You remember, Mike? We was going to start at the front of the high school, demo the main building, and I guess we decided we was going to put 58 trailers somewhere. But this is a much better.
Well, that was before I had any idea about touching the football fields. Because at that point, football fields were off limits, so to speak. So that's the only choice I had, but it was not their best choice.
No.
Concept 2 is a concept that we've had the opportunity to work with, look at. It's in your plan here. It definitely goes from east to west in your campus. It's less dysfunctional for everybody. You can still have your school, but at the same time, the kids can look out there and see, hey, something here is happening in a positive way.
You gain parking, football games for students, in general. You gain better visibility to parking lots. Everybody's inside of one building. There's just so many positive things.
I think the thing that we talked about first, Josh and I talked about it, is the AA. Your academics and your athletics. And that's what we got to improve on there. And the academics will come in brick and mortar, and your athletics, we talk about what art does for the young people. Athletics does the same thing. Mm-hmm. You can look at the ones that make better grades, they behave better and attend school more if they're involved in athletics. And at the present time, we've had to drop track in some of those programs because we don't have adequate facilities athletically for that. And going back to your fine arts building and things like that, we're lucky we hadn't gotten in trouble with that already. It needs to be cleaned up, cleared out, and rebuilt.
And a lot of this credit needs to go to the newest commissioner, Josh Young. He's one that put a fire under this thing. And sometimes it takes new vision. You know, some of us been around too long. And you you keep things around, and, you know, we have for, ever since I've been here. But with Josh coming on board, he said, you know, why have you waited so long? What's the deal? And I think we needed to hear that. So,
Mr. Manager, I didn't mean to give you a coronary this evening, but I think you have the authority to proceed of how we might handle this and how we might pay for it
And
at a
that's,
future meeting. So.
There are a few things that we'll need to know. Your slide said $3.5 to $4 million in architect fees. So just to get started, we're going to have $3.5 million to $4.5 million in architect fees. The only place we can put our hands on that money right now is on the fund balance. And to speak to the fund balance, when we issued $21 million in bonds about 2 months ago, part of the contingency in us being able to get those bonds at the place we got, at the rate we got the bonds at, was that no substantial decline in the fund balance would be, that we would not undergo any substantial declines in our fund balance. That was what our rating was based on, one of the primary factors that made our credit rating so good and people willing to buy those bonds. So when you've got, if you're going to do that for $3.5 to $4 million, we also, right now, we're in the process of advertising for bids on the $1.4 million locker room at Macon Middle School, which we contemplated previously coming out of fund balance. We also recently purchased the building in Nantahala for
Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to slow you down just a minute. We won't dive into too much of the weeds tonight.
Okay.
But we'll get in there. This board's going to help you, stand behind you, and we'll find a solution.
I hear you. More at our work session.
I hear you. Go ahead.
Mr. Manager, the way the architect's fees and contracts are set up, they can be, you can stop at any point, basically.
Right, but before we enter into that contract, we have to have the money
appropriate the money,
appropriated
yeah.
to be able to cover the amount of that contract, regardless of where we stop at. If the contract's for $4.5 million, that money's got to be appropriated and set aside for that entire contract.
I think one suggestion, and I think it's alluded to in the resolution language, is the idea of doing sort of a larger scale study that moves this concept or a concept forward with a design team that's under contract, but that there's a clear place to stop and let y'all evaluate. It would put more specifics to the development of a concept that would dig into programming and understanding how big the building really does need to be. Consultants are typically engaged for that, to do a more detailed site study and design work, as well as more detailed cost estimating. And it's an opportunity for you to get a closer look at a budget that gets to tighten up between $75 and $88 million, that would maybe allow you a better, more informed decision about tackling a much bigger
So how do we
project.
proceed with that?
It's the same scenario, I think, where you would solicit an RFQ and be clear about the scope of the services that you're requesting, which is often called an advanced planning study or a schematic design concept. And then there's a clear delineation that you're biting off a much smaller chunk and still moving the ball forward to gain clarity and gain information around what the magnitude of the project would be.
Mr. Being budget time, it seems to be the right time to have the discussion.
Well, and that's another thing you've got to, that's when you'll set the tax rate, is with the passage of the budget. So, you know, all those things are to be kept in mind at this point. I don't know if we have to go to the LGC. I mean, does the LGC have to give any approval if you go over a certain amount, like 15%? On an increase to the tax rate? I see those are things that we'd have to check with the financial advisors on, as well as what would be the best way for us to fund a project like this, using what resources. But again, in terms of, I would recommend at this point the board stay away from taking these funds out of fund balance, because again, that was a primary factor and something that we signed on the dotted line to, that we would not substantially decrease our fund balance because that impacted our bond ratings and the price at which we sold those bonds.
And how this project impacts our capital improvement plan, our overall capital improvement plan that we've discussed for some time. I mean, there's got to be some plan. I'm glad we're maybe we're at a point where we can develop a plan. As Gary said earlier, we've just been shooting from the hip on a lot of stuff, on a lot of investments, and you can't legislate by emotion. You got to have facts and figures, or at least I do. So,
But I'm willing to move whatever, I'm willing to do whatever you guys ask.
I don't remember shooting.
Thank you, Derek. I didn't mean, like I said, we didn't mean to get coordinated tonight. Calm down, work on your budget, and we'll work through this. I don't think there's a mega rush, but we're ready to have the discussion, sounds like. All right,
Let me
thank
ask
you,
one
gentlemen.
other thing.
Sure.
I'd like to have a copy of this.
Of the presentation?
Your presentation.
Absolutely.
I've got the other one that you've done. This is a kind of different format. And I believe I've seen this format this evening. I'd like
I think
to
you
have-
guys, I don't know if you guys printed a copy, you're welcome, or I'm happy to email it to you. I can email it.
So just email it. and then
Distribute
If you'll
it.
email it to Derek, he can give
Yep.
it to him.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
I'm getting quicker than that.
There you go, buddy.
Thank you.
This one I did see.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'd like to have that.
I'm going to keep us moving forward here. Item 11D, change order for New Atlantic Contracting on Macon Middle School renovation project. Mr. Morgan. Thank you.
This won't take just a minute. March 26th, we issued a authorization to proceed to New Atlantic Construction on the project. About that time, when we brought all the kids back to school, we were anticipating just having the whole wing to ourselves, but it's not that way. We weren't able to move everything out as we hoped. New Atlantic had asked for a 60-day extension at no cost in order so they can get started the minute school's out and have at it.
The reason being
That we couldn't get out of the way.
couldn't get out of the way. Well, we can motion to approve the 60-day extension.
So,
Got a motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. Any questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. Thank you, Jack. All right. Item 11F, approval of NC Works lease agreement. Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I passed you a copy out there. This is just an extension of the lease agreement that expired on March 31st.
This will not finish, I mean, the lease on.
March 31st of 2021. Of course, we lease space to the NC Works Career Center in our annex building. Attorney Ridenhour's reviewed this lease. It's nothing more than an extension of the current agreement we're under, extending it from the first day of April 2021 till the 31st day of March 2023. So
Motion
another
approved.
2 years.
Got a motion by Commissioner Higdon. Second by Commissioner Young. All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Mr. Manager, are there any more spaces in that annex?
We have
Juvenile detention has asked for a space.
We have one. We have a room over there that is currently vacant that we can definitely.
I'll give you her contact information.
Okay.
We're getting ready to maybe have more room over there. So.
Okay.
We have storage needs. We really need that room.
Consent of the agenda.
All right. Item 11G, grant writer. Commissioner Young.
I'm gonna make this quick, and just like Manager
We'll
Rowland,
pay for this school.
we hope. Just like Manager Rowland doesn't have enough to do already. I mean, a couple little birdies and myself, we've been, in conversation about grant writing, and I don't want the county to hire any more employees, but I'm just curious to know if we have anybody actively pursuing, state, federal, and private grants. And I'd like to look into either a freelance or on a contractual basis. I printed off just a quick description here on the internet. I wanted to share with you, but it says, local governments squeezed by higher operating costs and stagnant tax revenues are looking harder than ever at grants for money to plug budget gaps. Professional grant writers help local governments tap into the vast number of grants offered by federal agencies, state governments, and private foundations. Whether a community needs money to build affordable housing, buy a fire truck, hire a teacher, grant writers find opportunities and help local governments apply for funding. Many communities compete for grants, so riders need to present a compelling case about why one community merits funding more than another. Interviews with community residents and leaders provide insight into problems that grants could solve. Information from communities that have benefited from programs and services similar to those in the grant proposal offer evidence that the money will be used effectively. Grant writers can also research past proposals that have been accepted to understand what an agency or foundation expects in a proposal. So I just kind of wanted to maybe authorize our county manager to see if we have anybody actively looking for grants, or maybe we could potentially
I tell you what we do have.
acquire one.
We've got certainly access to some good grant writers that can teach grant writing out through the Southwest Commission.
I mean, if we put it out there that we're looking for one, and again, I don't want to hire an employee that's paid on the hour. I want to hire somebody that's either on a commission basis or that gives an incentive.
Absolutely, and I'll be happy to do that, and I'll also put in Tommy Jenkins and talk with the Southwestern Commission there about any opportunities they might have.
Fair enough.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
We are having a meeting, a housing meeting. You heard Mr. Young mention that. We were successful in a grant like Josh was talking about, $750,000. But we are in competition for that money, and we're going to have a meeting next Tuesday to try to come up with why we get a good chunk of that money. And so Josh is right, that all come through grant writing. So you have the Dogwood Foundation now, who you got to have a good grant writer and know what you're doing. The Cherokee Reservation Foundation, anything to do with the Eastern Band. So there's some opportunities there, but Josh is exactly right. If you don't know how to word and put it together, you won't get looked at.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of the March 9th meeting minutes and the addition of amendments 272 and 273?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor, raise your hand. Aye. Appointments. I don't see the jury committee. I don't have it in my packet. Who was that? Who would that be?
Found out today that would be a reappointment of Sarah Walter to the jury commission.
We get a
motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
SCC Board of Trustees is
Jeff Clower.
Jeff Clower. We'll get a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Young. Second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. I don't think there's a reason for a closed session, to my knowledge.
I'd like to ask one more question. Sure. While y'all are here. When can we go to the realtors that we've been in contact with and say, your property that you've shown us, and things like that? And I asked that question one time, well, when can we go back and say, look, party's over. Thank you for your help, but we've moved on. Because I met one tonight in the parking lot, and I didn't feel comfortable saying which way we're going. So when can I talk to the two realtors and say, look, we moved on. You do whatever you want to do with your property. We're no longer involved in it. When does that
I think
happen?
we just keep a powder dry until we make a decision, until this board votes, and along with the school board, they have to pass a resolution if this is the site they want, right, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I think they did. I think they have passed that resolution, and speaking of that, the resolution they presented, there was no action taken on it tonight, so we're going to follow back up on that.
We don't have to pass it, do we?
I think you can take it under advisement.
Take it under advisement, right.
We're under no formal, nothing with realtors, are we?
We're not under.
Well, no, we made contact with them. I made contact with them. I don't know if Josh had. I just need to tell them that we moved on. I don't want to keep a hold of the property, thinking we might be interested.
Oh, the realtors won't. They'll sell that baby. Somebody comes along, believe me. They'll sell it.
We have no obligation.
No.
As architects, we didn't see anything that didn't have a real high price tag and just land movement and improvements. I mean, very high price tags.
After they watch Bobby's show tonight, they'll probably understand that. That's fine.
So if I tell a realtor or two realtors that we've moved away from their property and we're looking at concept 2, is that true or false?
That's true based upon tonight, by the Board of Education.
The information we have now is
Okay. That's what I need to do. I need to.
All right, can I get a motion to recess until Tuesday, May 25th at 6 p.m. right here in this boardroom on 3rd floor of the Macon County Courthouse.
The only question, Mr.
West
Chairman,
Main
we've
Street.
always done that budget, had a lot more time than at 6 o'clock in the evening. Do we still want, are we going to bring whoever's at, fire departments, et cetera, EMS, et cetera?
No,
I think you'll schedule the meeting at
that'll
that
be
meeting.
work sessions, yeah.
So we'll schedule after that.
After
So
that,
It'll be the initial.
You're just presenting the
That's
budget,
just his
right?
initial
Just presenting.
presentation, yeah.
Okay,
And we'll schedule work sessions.
okay. Thank you.
So
We've
move.
got a motion to recess until Tuesday, May
So moved, Mr.
25th
Chairman.
at 6 p.m. Motion by Commissioner Higgins, second by Commissioner Bill. All in favor?
Raise your
Aye.
hand.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for your efforts tonight. Thank you for your patience.
We appreciate being called.